Dolphins fans, what's going on? Ben Morgan, Fins Up Network. It's time for the final preview and prediction video for the Saturday night NFL Network game between your Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. Meaningful December football. And yes, it's on the road. And yes, we're going to talk some about the weather and how that's going to fit into here. But before I get started, I'm going to go through some viewer questions that were submitted. I'm going to get to my final score prediction. Got to hear from you. Drop your final score predictions in the comments. Let's carry on the conversation up until Saturday night, leading up until game time. Got a lot of good ones to get to. First question right now is, will Mike Gesicki be more involved this week? And like I said, right from the beginning, there's going to be a common theme to some answers. There's going to be a common theme for this game in general, and that's the weather. But let's look at Mike Gesicki, because where has he been? MIA? He has been MIA. 4 targets, no receptions last 3 weeks. But we know things have got to change. And I think there's 2 reasons things have got to change. Number one, the offense is in a lull. Defenses are starting to kind of figure out what we're doing. We need to make some improvisation on the offense. Got to try some new things. A pass catching tight end, Mike Gesicki, that could be a solution. But number 2, it's the weather. I told you there's going to be a common theme here. The weather is going to dictate some stuff on offense as well. So what are we talking about? We're talking more runs. We're talking more short passes. So yes, Mike Gesicki would definitely be a good option to get more involved this week. Going to boil down to Mike McDaniel, though. What's his game plan going to be? Is he going to be stubborn? Is he going to continue to say, my offense can do this despite any weather, despite any defense? Or is he going to say, you know what? We're playing the Bills. They're good against the run. They're good against the pass. Defense has been kind of figuring us out lately. Now we got the weather to deal with. Maybe we can get the running backs. Maybe we can get Mike Gesicki more involved. It's going to boil down to Mike McDaniel. It's going to boil down to how he sees this game playing out. But hey, sign me up being all on board for Mike Gesicki being more involved this week. Number 2, and I love this. Well, this one just got straight to the point. How could weather impact offense since we're mostly timing based? And yeah, it's huge. Like I said, there's a common theme this week. It's the weather. Yes, the offense is timing based. It's predicated on wide receivers running those deep to intermediate routes across the middle. And to be honest with you, where's the run game been? Like I said before the season started, we don't need to be awesome at running the ball, but if we can have a top 20, there's 32 teams in the league. I'm not asking for much. If we can have a top 20 running game, this will help the offensive line. This will help play action. This will help beat Tua in general. Hasn't been a focal point, and we're not there yet. So the weather is going to essentially dictate that. It's going to contradict so many things, and I can't help but go back to last year's game between the Bills and the Patriots. You remember that game that I'm talking about? It was hard to watch. Weather dictated everything. Bill Belichick completely threw any sort of normal game plan out the window and said, we are going to run the hell out of the ball. They won that game 14-10. They threw the ball 3 times. The same amount of times that we threw the ball on the opening drive against the Chargers, they threw an entire game. They ran it 46 times for 222 yards. Now, I don't think we need to do that. I don't think it needs to be quite to that extreme. But for how much Mike McDaniel and the players so far in their media availabilities have kind of downplayed the weather about it being more of a mindset thing versus than a on-the-field type of thing. The reality is, yes, when it's cold, that is true. But when it's cold, when it's snowy, and most importantly, when it's windy, swirling winds, when you're doing something like that, you've got no choice but to change up your game plan, kind of like what we saw from Belichick last year. And like I said, I'm going to be hinting on some more of these things going in here, but you have no choice but to change your offense when weather is going to do this. So like I said, maybe not to the Patriots Belichick style of things from last year, but something has got to change. Let's do one that's not weather related. Will we see Eric Fisher starting this season? So now I was curious last week. It was been his first game that he was eligible to play in. Was curious to see if he would start at right tackle since Teron Armstead was cleared. He was good to go at left tackle. But obviously, we know what happens. Brandon Shell got the start. And now I'm sort of expecting kind of the same thing again this week because Teron Armstead, as you can see on the scroll, listed as questionable. Seems to be all systems go, though, despite the toe, despite the pec, despite the knee. Seems to be in line to start at left tackle. So with that, I would assume that we're going to keep Brandon Shell at right tackle as well. But where Eric Fisher comes into play, I still think it kind of boils down to 2 things. Number 1, he is the insurance plan to Teron Armstead. If something were to happen to Teron Armstead mid-game, if something were to happen to him at some point through the game and then he can't go next week, Eric Fisher, I believe, would be our guy at left tackle over Greg Little. Where he could fit in potentially at right tackle is if Brandon Shell were to get injured, or if he would struggle, but I think he would struggle. He would have to struggle at like a pretty high noticeable level, because I think what we've seen from Mike McDaniel is that he's pretty loyal to the guys that he's had. We would need to see quite the collapse from that right tackle position in order for Eric Fisher to end up getting some run there. Because if you look at Eric Fisher's career as well throughout the NFL, most of his stats have been at left tackle. He has gotten some play at right tackle. He does have some experience there, but for the most part, it's been at left tackle. So I think if we see him, it's going to be because an injury or very, very much performance-based. But we'll have to see. He's only been here for one game, so maybe he needs a little bit of time to get acclimated to the offense as well. Maybe he can sneak in at right tackle. But being 8-5, being in the thick of the things of the playoffs, you don't want to tinker too much, especially with a guy that's only been here for a couple of weeks. All right, we're right back to some weather-focused questions here. Will we be able to run? I actually merged a couple of questions just because of how similar they were for this one. Will we be able to run the ball, and will the running backs be used in the pass game? Well, I can tell you what, I hope so, but it's a tall task. Buffalo Bills, I believe, are the fourth best team versus the run, rushing yards allowed per game. And you know where we rank in offense. We rank near the bottom of the league in rushing yards per game. And if you can hear my son crying in the background, he's not thrilled about our run game either. He's just as sad about it as you and I. So we're just going to have to live with it at this point. But what I think happens, Mike McDaniel, in regards to running the ball, I think he'll run it a little bit more this week, but I don't think it's going to be your traditional turnaround, hand the ball to the running back. I think he's going to try to get more creative ways to get the ball to these guys. So what am I talking about? Well, we've seen it as a staple in the 49ers offense, and we saw it from us earlier in the year. But it's that quick toss to the running back to get him the ball earlier, and then rather than just like doing like a toss sweep with it, cutting back against the grain and going back across the way the ball was originally tossed. Maybe we see more of that. Maybe we see more jet sweeps with Waddle, with Hill, more pop passes like that. And yeah, you mix in some traditional runs as well. But then whether it's let's go to the second part of this. Whether it's designed passes to running backs or if it's check downs to running backs after taking that little bit of a deeper look, I think it's almost a necessity. They have to incorporate throwing the ball to running backs in order to find success on offense in this game. Because like I said, the weather's going to dictate so much. We're going to have to change a lot on offense. Throwing the ball to running backs, which is something we thought we'd see more from a Mike McDaniel-led offense, has got to be incorporated more, I think, in general, but especially in this game against this team in this weather. I got one more question here, and it's over under 17 points for the Dolphins offense. Now, I got to tell you, this number is spot on, and it's a great talking point for a stat that I saw earlier today on NFL Network, because they said the Miami Dolphins are 1-5 when scoring 17 points or less, but 7-0 when scoring 18 or more. So person that submitted this, great call on the number 17, but that bleeds perfectly into my prediction. So I'm going to throw this one out here. I got the Bills winning this one by a field goal, 20-17. And I'm going to put, I'm sorry for answering your question this way. I put my prediction number right on your number. So I'm unfortunately predicting that stat to come true again as well. Dolphins scoring 17 or under and getting the loss. But I want to start by just saying how unpredictable I truly believe this game is. You got the weather. You got the likely change in an offensive philosophy, at least to a certain extent, coming. And from the Dolphins, you've got an elevated level of just urgency surrounding this team. We were 8-3 a couple of weeks ago, top of the division, number 2 seed in the AFC. Well, what happened? We're no longer the number 2 seed in the AFC. We're no longer atop of the division. And now we're trying to fight our way. Like, what are the scenarios? How many games do we need to win in order to get a wild card spot? So to be honest, with all the factors putting into this one, I absolutely hate predicting this week's game. And it's not that I don't believe Miami can win. The fact is, I almost flipped the scores. I almost had Miami winning this one 20-17. Think about it, man. I think this game is going to come down to the end by a field goal one way or another. But like I said, Miami's getting desperate. They might have to throw out a little bit of a different offense that the Bills just simply aren't prepared for. Why have defenses been stopping us recently? Well, they're prepared for what we're going to throw out. Well, if we're making adjustments to that, and if we're making adjustments to the weather, the Bills might not be prepared for that. We might have a little bit of a slight offensive advantage because of those factors. And then you look at defensively. We dogged Josh Boyer a lot, but the second half adjustments he made in week 3 when we played the Bills were outstanding. They were simply outstanding. We held the Bills to 5 points in the second half of that game. But at the end of the day, what kills me are it's the elements, it's the weather. I'm the broken record on this one. It's like you're not really truly getting a true test between these two because of how much the wind, the rain, the snow, the cold is going to play into this. Both of these teams, in my opinion, they'd love a fast track. They'd like to let their offenses do their thing. Both of them have really damn good offenses. I just don't think we're going to see that in this game. So weather is going to just dictate so much. End of the day, why I have the Bills winning it, though, they're more prepared for this type of game. And I do want to put this out there, though. I don't want this to be a cold weather Tua thing. I know that he's struggled in some games in Buffalo and in Tennessee in the past. This isn't just on Tua. I'm 35 years old. This has been a Dolphins thing my entire life. Remember when the Dolphins used to get out to like 9-10 win seasons and then it would just stop once December hit? We'd always be leading the division, then things would just stop. This has been a common theme. We're a team that plays in warm climates, and we struggle when we go up north for these games in December. This is not necessarily just a Tua thing. This is a Miami Dolphins thing. So I want to get rid of that narrative right away. I think this is a great game for Tua to be able to come out and kind of put that behind him. We'll see how much that training in Maryland with his brothers and with his brothers' teammates, wide receivers, is going to go towards being able to perform in a cold weather game. But I tell you what, growing up in Wisconsin, you don't just, I do this once and now it's good. This kind of weather is something you have to get acclimated for. And like I said, it's not necessarily just because it's cold. Yes, the cold can be a mindset. You can overcome that. You can do things to help with that. It's the wind. Tua, we all know what Tua is. Tua's arm is fine, but it's more of a precision-based accuracy fine. That's the type of quarterback he is. He isn't Josh Allen that can just power that ball through the wind. That's not who we are. The wind is the biggest thing in my opinion, and then also like the slippery ball from the snow and everything. So I'm not putting this just on Tua. I don't think this is a Tua prove it, and if all of a sudden we don't win this game, it's Tua can't win in the cold. We're not going to those measures at this point in time. The sample size isn't big. This is a Miami Dolphins struggling in December type of situation and type of thing that's on my mind, where I think the Bills just simply have an advantage in this game. But that is my prediction. That is what I've got for this game, Dolphins fans. But I want to hear from you. Go ahead, drop your final score predictions in the comments. Do what I didn't, predict the Dolphins to win. Let's get this damn win. We need one. We need one bad, Dolphins fans. So let's go ahead and get it. I will be back either Saturday late after the game or Sunday morning with my recap and takeaways from this game. But enjoy the game, Dolphins fans. And until then, fins up.